Well, hello there, friends, and welcome to Virtual Show, the only late night VR talk show. I'm your host, Wes. With me, as always, my good friend Roots. Roots, what a week we have ahead, friend. When I look down the list of games that have just dropped or are about to drop, it's another one of those weeks, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. There's all sorts of games dropping left and right. I was just having a discussion with somebody in the Facebook group about Rockstar Games, and they said, "Bro, this game." I posted the article, asked everybody, "Are you excited about this game that's going to be coming out in the future?" He said, "Dude, that's been old. Article's a year old, and they haven't said anything yet." And I said, "And like, what's your point?" And he said, "Well, they would have been saying something if it was anywhere close." And I said, "Well, I don't think it's close." Because they were just hiring at the time. But you haven't been around VR, obviously. They just drop shit out of nowhere, man. Like you hear about a game, don't hear about it for 2 years, and then it's out. It's different than everything else. But yeah, so I'm excited about it and about all the games coming up. And I was a little put off by Star Wars. We were just talking in the chat here that the I guess the controllers aren't all working on the Steam version, and then I don't know why there's not an Oculus Link version. I never really heard why that was a decision that was made. I was a little bummed out because I wanted to see, assuming it was cross buy, I wanted to see some PCVR goodness, and I don't see myself running out to get the Steam version. I don't know. There's all sorts of weird stuff going on, but the game is good. I really like the game so far. Can't wait to talk about it when we do. But just decisions being made sometimes baffle me, I guess.
Yeah, I was a little bit taken aback by the fact that there wasn't an Oculus Link version available yet. Now, yet being the operative word, it could show up at any time. I don't know what the story is exactly on that, but considering that there is a Steam version, there's a Quest version, there's a PlayStation VR version,
Mm.
it is a little weird that there isn't a Oculus Rift version. But again,
It could be
who
coming.
knows? Could be
Yeah.
there tomorrow. Could be one of these weird things where, somebody didn't enter something in right, clerical error, and who knows? Who knows? I don't know if there's any official word on that yet.
Mash says it says on Steam that it doesn't support Index or Vive, and I'm thinking about which headsets are left. Um,
It's the Rift. It's the Rift. It's one of these weird situations where there's no Rift version on the Rift store, but the one on Steam is only for Rift.
yeah, it's weird. It's weird. And Scion says that Link Store is being phased out, and that was another discussion I was having with a lot of, I want to say newbie VR people, people just coming into VR. They haven't been around like seasoned veterans, all the people that have been watching our show for the last couple of years. They're under the impression that this Rockstar game that I linked is going to be PCVR exclusive, and I said I don't even know if it's going to be on PCVR, dude. And then they're laughing and saying it's not going to make it on Quest, and it's probably going to come to Quest 3 anyway. And I don't know, man. Like it was just I had such a weird day, so many weird conversations, and my mind is spinning with lack of logic, and that's why I'm glad
They just want to make they just want to make games to make them. They have no interest in
in selling them.
selling them and making money.
Yeah, well, and then I made the argument too that everybody's on the Quest. It's the largest platform, and it's blowing up. It's the where people are at, and PCVR, like you can't build a computer right now. Like if you decided I want to run out and get a PCVR computer that's VR capable, it's difficult to get the components, and it's not getting easier. So I guarantee that conversation's happening with developers as well. There's a lot of things that are pushing things towards the Quest. So I think Scion's gonna have to pick one up. That's what I've decided. And there's no way around it, Scion.
I think he'll be a flat gamer first at this point,
Oh
honestly.
well, that'd be cool too. We could get him into Escape from Tarkov. But no, I was gonna say that's why I'm glad the virtual show is here. Logic and sanity reign supreme, and we can talk about the way things really are. And so I'm excited to talk some VR.
Yeah, me too. And it's going to definitely be a tale of 2 weeks, right? Because here we have this week where we're basically deep diving on just one game. We have one topic today. Well, I mean, it's kind of a broader topic because we're going to be doing a review discussion of Wraith, the Oblivion Afterlife. But before we even get into that, we're going to kind of talk about the horror genre as a whole, talk about the different types of games that there are, the different levels of quality, and give examples. So it'll be a little while before we even get started on Wraith, but I thought it would be important to lay some groundwork here, some context, so that we can maybe be a little more clear with what we mean later on when we talk about Wraith. But a tale of 2 weeks, Roots, because this week we deep dive on one title. Next week, I mean, I can think of 4 right now off the top of my head that is likely to be on the docket for next week's virtual show.
Yeah. I was looking at all the titles that I just got in the last week, and I was like, oh God, we're gonna have to talk about all these, and we're only talking about one today. So yeah, that's good though. That'll be a good discussion for next week, and we still gotta, I guess, I have to get into some more um shooter games to be able to do this, but we still got to have a Sandlocky gunstock conversation in the near future as well.
Yeah, man. We need to do that ASAP. I need to order a sling. Did you get a sling with yours?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna tell you, Wes, they sent me 2 slings, and I don't need an extra sling. Maybe I can just ship it out to you, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Oh, I mean that would be
To the
cool.
PO box or whatever.
If you don't need it, I'll buy the shipping or whatever it costs to send it
I'm not
my
worried
way.
about that.
But yeah, I think that in order to have a fair conversation about this, it needs to be correct, and I feel like that's probably a pretty big deal having that sling on there, right?
Yeah, especially if you're using it for something like Pop One or somewhere you want to be moving around. Although I would submit you probably have to use the smaller version of the magnets for Population One or anything that's like that because it's just so much climbing and stuff.
So you like broke your gun stock down into the base components.
They sent me 2. They sent me the original version and the other one. So I got this white one as well. And so I broke this one down and I got one thing here and then one here. And then whenever I'm holding it, like climbing and stuff, I mean, I got the weight of this. So it's a little bit, my right hand is a little gimped, but I can do it. But I mean, it's better. They've got an actual adapter or like a magnet that's supposed to connect with this thing. But mine came with a crack in the bottom of it, so I can't use it. So I was thinking maybe I can get it 3D printed or I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, see
cool.
that's a problem I have with mine too. Unrelated. One of my controller pieces, the magnet piece that connects to the controller, was cracked
Ooh.
when it came in, and I dropped it one time,
Mm.
and the lip that holds it in place broke off. So
Oh.
now, I mean, I got it back on there, but I had to. Here, I'll just show you.
Which one is it, right or left? Because
Uh,
the one at there's one
uh,
dominant hand and then there's one that's not dominant. The bigger one's going to be your right.
yeah, it's the right-handed one, and
Mm.
as you can see, I've got it all zip tied on here
Ah.
to keep it in place.
Well, Wes, I have good news for you on that front too. They sent me an extra set of rings as well.
Huh?
So I've got an
Well,
extra
you
right one. So I'll just send you now. I've got a definite reason to send it. So I'll just send you a new ring and I'll send you a strap courtesy of Sandlocky.
well, thank you, Sandlocky, for hooking my friend Roots up here, and thank you, Roots, for hooking me up.
Yeah. So we'll just I'll just get that. I guess just drop the PO box information in the Discord, and I will ship it out tomorrow.
Absolutely, making moves, friends, and yeah, I appreciate that. And then after I get my shit all legit, I'm sure we'll have a nice dead week here pretty soon where we can just focus in on shooter games.
Yeah, it's fun.
But that's not going to be next week because what do we have, Roots? We have what, Demeo or Demio? We've been pronouncing it wrong, by the way. It's Demio apparently. Uh, And to what you were saying a moment ago, how stuff just drops out of nowhere. How about the Wizards Dark Times for Quest just dropping out of nowhere?
I never even didn't even know they were working. I mean, I guess I probably did know they were working on it a little bit, but man, that's crazy, right? That's just that's another game that I got to get into, and it's exciting because it's so good, man. And I think of all the new people, all the newbies into VR coming in, questioning Roots is no, just kidding. The newbies coming in and just trying new games, man, and they're all good, right?
Yeah, yeah. And on top of this, I've got some PlayStation stuff to talk about. Star Wars Pinball, first of all, like Roots was talking about a moment ago. Roots has the Quest version. I have the PlayStation version.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
So that's definitely on the docket for next week. And I mean, if we didn't just get it today, then it probably would have been on today's show. But we literally only got it hours before we went on. And then on top of all of that, I've got Layers of Fear for PlayStation VR as
Oh
well.
wow,
So, yeah, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about next week, and that's not to even mention Alvo, which I might just hold off for our
gun.
gunstock/shooter discussion because obviously aim comparisons always play into these discussions, right?
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea. And Phil Yarn says, coming in with Dark Times is now free on Infinity, Viveport Infinity. Another reason to get Viveport Infinity. And someone was saying that at the beginning of the show, they renewed their Viveport Infinity yesterday. Who was
Was it
that?
Spry Guy?
No,
It was Spry Guy that canceled recently, wasn't it?
yeah, no, it wasn't Spry Guy. He said, I think, but I can't remember who it was. Whoever it was, go ahead and say it again. I can't find it. It's down. It was a while back, so I can't remember. But
Gamer Chick checking in the chat asking, "Am I playing on Star Wars Pinball on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation
ooh,
5?"
that's a
Well,
good question.
the the plan currently is to play on PlayStation 5, unless someone can put forth a good reason for me to go into the living room instead of my bedroom.
No,
Uh, but
I would rather use it. You said it's you're doing it on the PlayStation 5 instead of the PlayStation 4, or the other way around.
PlayStation 5.
Okay, yeah,
Anytime I play PSVR anymore, it's on my PlayStation 5. That's what I have here in my bedroom. Now, in the very next room, my Pro's right there. So if there ever is an advantage, which I haven't found the game yet that gives me an advantage to play on PS4, but if there ever is an advantage, it's just right there.
yeah, it's ready to go. I guess it was Diz the Game Cat. Diz renewing his subscription, which is really good because I don't know if I'm not wrong. Diz, weren't you PSVR exclusive not too long ago? Or I guess
At
maybe
one time, it
at
was.
one time anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's
He's
cool.
been he's in my boat. The PSVR was the gateway drug for him that led to all of the more expensive habits, right?
Yeah, that's awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's awesome. Well, Diz, congratulations on your Viveport subscription. Let me tell you, I'm sure you've already noticed the extensive library of very good games. And what you're going to come to find out over time is that there's a lot of stuff on there that's good that you wouldn't think is good. It's stuff that either has not the best trailer or not the best thumbnail, but over time you'll find yourself trying things just out of boredom just to check them out, and you're going to find out that a lot of this indie stuff that's on there is actually way better than you would even think. Maybe not the type of stuff that you'd go out and buy per se, but I mean, if you have access, it's certainly worth playing a lot of
Right.
these lesser known titles.
Just like movies, right? Like if something's free, movies on TV or on the computer, I might watch it if it's free. I'm not apt to run out and buy movies either. So I think it's good. It's good
Yeah,
to have those options for sure.
and a lot of good non-game software on Viport as well, like interactive movies, VR, cinema. In fact, Viport just signed a pretty big deal with Bandai Namco. I read
Ooh, really?
uh, to produce um, anime experiences, not games, but anime VR experiences for Viport.
Oh God, man! If they do that right, that'll blow them up big time, right? There's so many anime fans out there.
Yeah, man. I mean, just take a look at the reviews for things like Tokyo Chronos or Spice and Wolf VR. All of these, borderline game movies that are on Steam or the PlayStation Store, they always come out at like 30, 40, $50. They're only a couple hours long and they always have great reviews. And it's because so many people love this type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And Spry says exactly what I say. Tried so many games that he never would have tried unless it were for Infinity, and that's the beauty of it is it's just trying stuff that you know that you never would have tried and enjoying it.
Yeah, man.
So,
Yeah, there's good stuff on there. We could do 2 hours on Viport recommendations, and we probably should just do a Viport, the best of Viport, like legit best of Viport episode, where we talk about all of the great games on there, because we focus a lot on the lesser known titles. We do Viport Infinity episodes. We don't come right out and tell people, hey, you can play Moss on Viport. You know what I mean? We don't focus on the titles that everyone knows about. We generally kind of try to find the hidden gems, but I don't think people realize just how extensive the catalog is on Infinity.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely extensive for sure.
Anyway, we should probably get started on our horror games slash Wraith discussion. But before we do that, let's kick it off the way we always do by saying hello to our friends in chat. And I see Lipnox VR has made it here. He says LA Noir is on Viport, and it's sweet. Yeah, that is pretty sweet. Drew made it. Apparently, Drew didn't show up last night, and we had to cancel the show last night because
No.
Drew couldn't make it. But he's here now, and it looks like we're actually going to be able to do a show, Roots.
Yeah, that's good because we just had that conversation before we came on. What if Drew isn't there? What are we gonna do? We're gonna shut down. Actually, I really do enjoy when I see Drew there. Although I think we might have gone on with or without you tonight, Drew. But I would have felt bad. Would have felt heartbroken for sure.
Scion says, "Who's the retard who comes here just to thumbs down?" Don't accuse me because I thumbs up even if the whole video is Quest. Yeah, we don't think it's you, Scion. We totally think that it's I don't know. I could throw out some names here. I want to keep it to myself.
Yeah, there's a couple people, but at least I feel good because we're in good company, Wes. Because that down or one or two down votes seems to go across the board. Anthony gets them, like all the shows. It seems like get those same couple people, and it's very bizarre. But yeah, whatever.
Yeah, all the shows, all of them get that couple of thumbs down. I think obviously someone thinks it's funny, right?
Yeah.
And apparently the joke never gets old. Never gets old because it's every time.
Yeah, Spry says he still thinks it's Scion, and part of me thinks it's Scion too. Although I think he probably does thumb up everything. I thumb it up before I even start. I know it's going to be a good show.
Well, speaking of good people, Creeper Betty PSVR joining us in the chat. Thank you, Betty, for coming by and hanging out with us. You might be interested in this episode as Wraith Afterlife is coming to PlayStation VR pretty soon. Phil Yarn is in the chat. He says that the one thumbs down is always epic. It is an epic thumbs down.
Yeah.
Mash Daddy making an appearance as always. He says, "We know what you saw on." Let's see here. Who else? Alex VR. Hey, buddy. Thanks for coming by. Diz, of course, we already spoke to Diz the Game Cat. Mepper, ever faithful. Hello, Mark. Void Cat. It says Space Denizen for 2 months now. I still call him Void Cat, which even before Space Denizen, he was Void Citizen forever. But I called him Void Cat for like, I don't know. Probably that's pretty much the whole time I've known this guy. So welcome, Void Cat, to the chat.
He'll always be Void Cat to me forever.
Traveling Man, as always, he says the universe unfolds. Indeed.
It's your wife.
Hack.
Your wife says she's the thumbs down.
Probably. She's like wants to go to bed, right? She wants to go to bed, but I'm occupying this space here.
Well, Traveling Man says makes a good point. He said he just learned that this is a bad thing in Greece, and I'm sorry if you're Greek. I didn't mean to offend you. So maybe the person is Greek and they think that the thumbs down is good.
So hacks in the house. Alexander Ritter is up early. Guten Morgen, Alex. Thanks for coming by. Let's see here.
My God,
Scott
Wizards of
Merrill.
Dark Times is 36 gigabytes on Infinity. How big is it on the Quest? That's
It's
another.
4 gigabytes.
Okay, that's another conversation I keep having on this Facebook group is people like don't skimp on the 64 gigs, bro. These games are getting so big now. I mean, I think really people are really gonna regret it very soon here. I don't think games are getting any smaller. It's crazy talk.
It's literally, and you'll know immediately when you get into the PC version why it's so big. I mean, it's such a beautiful game. It really is.
But
I
it's
have
a
not checked it out on Quest, and I couldn't talk about it even if I had. But I can definitively say that it's about 10% of the size of the PC version. So
well, and we'll be able to talk more about this week, but I'm sure it's going to be amazing just because it's an amazing game. And this is my point. This has been my point the whole time to Scion. It's been my whole point to everybody. Just because a game is put out on Quest doesn't mean it needs to be questical. That is a developer's decision to not do the work, to put in the work, to put it in two different versions. They want to do one thing and transport it over. It can be done. And so, developers, if you want to do it, you're going to make Scion and Drillo and all these people happy, make a name for yourself as like the Wizards of Dark Times, you know? So,
yeah, there is a difference, and it's especially noticeable on the Quest 2 as opposed to the Quest 1. Quest 2 much more capable, and titles that are Quest 2 enhanced. That gap between, a PC VR game, your average PC VR game, and your, Quest 2 enhanced title, not so big. Now, obviously, you're not going to get Asgard's Wrath running on there, but for most titles the Quest can do a really respectable job, and I would submit that the title that we're covering today is a good example of that.
yeah, absolutely. And Scion says Cyan did it right as well. And that's a good point as well, at least from the footage that we've seen or the stills that we've seen for the PC VR version of Mist. So,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking that out. I would hope that it's not going to be very much longer now.
yeah, it's got to be soon. So,
Phil Yarn says Warplanes look great on Quest. That game surprised me just how good it looked on PC.
yeah, it's so good. It's such a good game. A lot better than I thought it would be.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, let's get into our topic today. And again, uh, the purpose of the episode today is to kind of do one of our old school deep dive review discussions of Wraith, the Oblivion, Afterlife. But it's a weird thing, man, because this is a horror game, or at least if you look up on Steam or Oculus, it's going to be listed in the horror section. But horror is a broad term when it comes to gaming in general, but especially when it comes to VR. There's a lot of very different games that fall under that label, right? Horror. So we felt like it would be a good idea to lay a little groundwork here. Uh, Talk a little bit about the different types of games that you know people use that label for, and give a little bit of a definition to each type. Then talk about which ones are good, which ones are great, which ones are not so good, and why. That way we have a little bit of reference, a little bit of context as we start to talk about Wraith and what kind of game it is exactly, and just how good it is ultimately. um it's it's not going to be a spoiler review. So anybody worried about story spoilers, you don't have to worry about that here. The story is so much a part of this game. Had a lot to do, Roots, with why I didn't stream it. I the first couple of hours of the game, I had trouble, getting the streaming set up going because I've never streamed anything before. But by the time I got a handle on that part of it, the story had progressed in the game to the point that I just didn't want to spoil it, man. By the time you hit the switch in this game and it gets good, I really just it would have ruined so much of the experience for anybody who might be wanting to play it that I just said, you know what, I'll just go ahead and play through the game, um, off air, and I'll just take the hit when it comes to the beat it challenge.
Yeah. Well, there's always something else, right? You can always do something else. Good
Yeah,
news is I haven't been playing very much lately, so uh, I guess it's not like I'm shooting ahead.
right, right. Anyway, the point of the beat it challenge was to finish these games anyway. So I feel like it's a moral victory nonetheless, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Absolutely. As long as you finish, doesn't even matter, right?
Right. Anyway, let's talk about the different types of games that you might find when you buy a game that's labeled horror, a VR game. One of the biggest misnomers that I see when people talk about horror games in VR is that they generally tend to include these dark psychological thriller type games. I think that A Chair in a Room, Greenwater, or Transference is a good example of these type of games. These are games that typically have some dark subject matter. They generally have some high tension, or maybe even a scary part or two in them, and generally some dark theme to them. But all in all, Roots, and I don't know how you feel about it. I don't think that these games are technically, by definition, horror games.
I don't feel like they're horror games. I don't know. It depends on what you consider horror, and I guess that's kind of what we're doing here. But I always grew up with horror was horror. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was a freaking horror movie, horror game, horror. People are killing each other. There's all sorts of crap. This is more. It's more psychological, like you said, thriller. Right? It's more in your mind. It's more kind of creepy than it is horror. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right, right. And you got typically these involve some kind of like murder or some kind of mortal crime that would be horrific to live through. So it's easy to see why people would consider these to be horror. But when I think of horror in the strictest definition, I'm thinking about mass murderers. I'm thinking about monsters, ghosts, demons, this sort of thing that's just nightmare fuel. And I don't feel like a game like A Chair in the Room, Greenwater, or Transference, even though both very good games and among my favorites. Not exactly horror in my definition.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think so either, but definitely good games for sure.
Yeah, Alexander Ritter concurs. I completed Transference. He says it was great. It absolutely was, and it goes on sale from time to time for less than $10, and it still blows my mind that something that high quality can go for so little. But then again, it is a rather short game, so
And
I
we
guess
all paid for that sale in the beginning when we all got paid too much for it, right? For the time
right.
wise. So it kind of evens out.
Yeah. I always use it as an example of the exception to the rule, right? Because generally I like X amount of time if I'm spending so much money. But Transference is a game that I paid $30 for. I beat it in less than 3 hours and I was happy. I was happy with the purchase at the time. So there's always an exception to the rule, right?
Yeah, yeah, as long as you enjoy it. I mean, life is, what you make of it. So I'd rather spend $30 for a 3 hour experience that I really enjoyed than $3 or $30 for a 20-hour experience that I didn't like or was mediocre, right? So
Right. Exactly. It's all about the individual game, and they're all very different. Sion in the chat says that I'm going to get some good Anthony karma. So I don't know what that relates to, but I'll take it, man.
yeah, yeah, everybody likes Anthony Karma,
Yeah.
right?
Who doesn't like good karma?
Yeah.
Uh, Onikazi says, you mean horror equals slasher style movies as opposed to Dread, more like Poe or Lovecraft? Not exactly. I wouldn't say that either of these really fit that definition either. But let me continue and we'll clarify a little bit more. Really, I'm talking more. I think the examples, if you played either of those, I think they're pretty good examples of what I mean there. Another type of game that I don't necessarily consider to be a strictly a horror game are these zombie games, and I would include games like Arizona Sunshine or The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. Neither of those games did I find to be particularly scary. Both of them among my very favorite games, and can have some jarring, scary parts in them. But really, when I think of horror games, I don't think of these games. These are a very specific zombie apocalypse type of game. I would consider them.
Well, then we need to convince Radio Run. Scion, I get it. It doesn't matter if it's horror or not. Zombies or zombies, never happening. Radio Run, you need to get into some Saints and Sinners, bro. It's not horror. I know you don't do horror, but it's weird. It's weird, Wes, because to him, this is horror. And I think
Well,
that's
look at I mean, if you look at these zombie models here, I mean, they're disgusting, scary looking things, right? So I mean, I could see why it would be easy to think that this is a scary game, and it can get, intense at times when you have a horde of them after you. But it isn't the type of thing that really gets my pulse up. Like I'm
mm,
scared to let the zombie get me. It's just I'm scared to have to start over whatever it was I was trying to do, right?
yeah. And Drew's got you. I was waiting to say exactly, Drew, what Drew's saying. Horror games are super subjective, because I'm laughing because what you're describing ain't shit to you. You know what I mean? Like you've even said I mean, something has to really, really like do some crazy stuff to get to under your skin to where it's creeping you out or scaring you. Whereas somebody that just doesn't do this stuff at all, like the littlest thing would scare the hell out of him. Remember Alex, dude, back in the day, just trying to get him into any horror game with jump scares. It's just everybody's so different. I guess that's what's so awesome about life is everybody's different. And but yeah, I guess because like I said, I was never really scared in this game. Well, that's not true. There's some moments where I had some stuff in my face and you freak out and you don't want to die. Um,
Yeah, there are moments, right? But it isn't the overlying theme of the game, right? This game is it's more about people than the zombies, to be quite honest. The zombies are just kind of an obstacle.
yeah, yeah. Well, the people are definitely more of a threat to me in this apocalyptic scenario for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, there are scary parts, and I would say that there are scary parts in the psychological thriller games as well. But when I think of horror, these aren't the titles that I'm thinking about. So now instead of us talking about what isn't horror, let's talk about what is horror. And typically, when I look at these VR games, these horror VR games, they fall into one of two categories. There are two main types of horror games. First are the creepy slash spooky games. So these games, I mean, they will scare you, but it isn't like an overt scared for your life. It's more of a dread that you feel as you make your way through. I think Affected, the manor, is a good example of this. I think that Dreamback VR, for those of you who played that, it's a very good example of this. These are more like your haunted games, your ghost games, right? Where you're not so much faced with something that's going to physically attack you so much, but you might see a lot of jump scares, right, in this sort of game, or you might have doors slamming behind you, or things like this. Things getting pushed over in the room. Not the scariest thing in the world, especially to someone who plays a lot of these games, but spooky. And I definitely would consider these type of games to be horror games.
Yeah, Cyan has a good. He says the creepy spooky is what he calls light horror. That's pretty much kind of yeah. It's like a light horror, right? It definitely is spooky, but or creepy. But it's more about like you said, that dread. So
Alex Ritter asked, "Have we played Don't Knock Twice?" This is one of the few games on the short list that I have not played. I have not played Don't Knock Twice. Furthermore, I haven't seen the movie. Roots, have you played Don't Knock Twice?
I have not played or seen the movie, and I'm tempted to knock twice already, bro. Like that, you know what I mean? You tell me I can't do it, I'm gonna do it, and I'm probably not
Right.
gonna. I'm not gonna like what the consequences of doing said knocking.
Yeah, you don't tell Roots not to do something that like you got to do. You got to use the reverse psychology with him.
Yeah, you got to use reverse psychology. Because I'm thinking you're just trying to trick me, but if you trick me into tricking me, I can probably be tricked. That makes sense. I don't know.
Hussein X says LCD screen makes dark scenes in horror games a bit less scary. Personally, that's must be why they use LCD to sell more horror. Um, I think LCD screens with horror games can be a bit of a problem, and we'll get into that later when we talk about Wraith. But I don't necessarily think that it always makes things less scary. I think it can actually make things more scary in the right scenario. But again, we'll talk more about that later. Um, so yeah, I think Scion's right here. By calling this light horror. Typically, this type of thing doesn't scare me, but with that said, I do enjoy it. Uh, you know, these horror games are my scene, man. This is my favorite genre of games, and I like both kinds of games. I like the spooky games as well as the final or other category of horror games, and that is scary horror games. We have spooky horror games, and then we have scary horror games. And I don't think I have to search very hard to give examples of what a scary horror game is. I would consider the Exorcist Legion VR to be a scary horror game, or Home Sweet Home would be a scary horror game. These are games that if you can manage to lose yourself in the immersion of the game, um, you're going to be scared for your life, right? Something's going to get you and kill you, and it's not going to be fast. It's going to be very painful and horrible. So, yeah, I think that this, above all, this is what I look for when I go into a horror game.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I for me, anything that has to do with demonic stuff and that stuff is creepy to me. I don't like it in real life. I definitely don't like it in games either, and so it creeps me out more than a lot of other stuff for sure.
yeah, yeah. This is what this is one of the reasons why I play VR is you go into VR because VR is so much more uh, able to affect you on not only a mental level but a physical level. I mean, it's so immersive from time to time um, that that I mean, you feel like you're in the game, right? And in particular with these horror games, uh, if effective, it really affects me on a physical level. Like it makes me breathe faster. It makes my heart beat faster. Uh, this is what I want from a game. This is what I'm trying to get when I put the headset on almost every time. That's why I love the horror genre so much because it's so much more likely to affect me on this level.
And Wes is chasing the dragon every time he goes into the VR, looking for that next dopamine fix of adrenaline, right? I mean just that feeling of just fear or whatever. And Gamer Chicks says RE7 is terrifying. That for me, in VR, I haven't tried to play it much flat, but I've never wanted to get away from somebody so much in VR and like freaked out than Jack, dude. Like so the way they did that game, and so that just shows you certain developers, they have such a knack of really building that suspense that when something happens, it just everything falls apart and Roots is running, screaming, and it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Resident Evil 7, obviously a great example of a scary horror game. Something that's going to affect you on a physical level. Something you have to take a break from, man. Some people only can take it in short periods because it's just so intense. This is what I love above all in VR are these sorts of games. This is what my hopes are every time I pick up a game like Layers of Fear or Wraith. I'm hoping to have this kind of experience with it. Unfortunately, as we're getting ready to discuss, these types of experiences are pretty few and far between.
Yeah, but I think that's gonna change. I think that's changing for every genre of video game for VR because we've said it. The developers are they're learning. And they've learned more, and there's so much experience. The engine's getting better, and it's just freeing up a lot more room for, I think, for more creativity. Instead of trying to get the games to run, now they can focus on putting more into the game and going more AAA and just banging out some amazing games.
Delirium Drew said, I like Layers of Fear more than I thought. Layers of Fear is an interesting example. And yeah, I think it's a good game. It's very story driven, it's very dark. Um, I would say that that's more of a spooky game than a scary game, but it's such a there are things that they do in Layers of Fear that you don't see very often in VR games. They kind of nail this whole surreal, dreamlike environment that we don't get a whole lot of games that have that sort of thing in them, and that's what makes Layers of Fear so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Scott Merrill said the first time I played RE7, I felt sick to my stomach, but it wasn't motion sickness, just the environment. That's how I knew how good it was. Yeah, yeah. That my wife won't play it because that first scene, as soon as you go into the guest house and you lift up that lid off of that pot and all of those roaches just scatter out of it,
Mm.
she noped out right then and she's never went back into the game. And I try to tell her that the creepy crawlies that doesn't happen very often in the game. It's only a few different spots, but man, it is visceral when it happens.
It happens to me almost every day, Wes. I pull a fridge out and hundreds of roaches just go freaking out, skittering everywhere. Crazy, bro. I've seen some stuff.
I bet you have, man.
I
My
really
wife's
have.
worst nightmare.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude.
Anyway, so now we've laid a base of what the different types of horror games are. Let's talk about the scale here, the spectrum, because I've said it many times on our program that we have a lot of good horror games. We do. We have a lot of good horror games in VR. Um, it's my favorite genre, again, in VR. But we don't have very many great horror games. So let's talk about the different tiers. What type of games, in my opinion, fall in each tier, and why? What makes this game better than that one? Well, let's start with our bottom tier games, right? These would be your pretty much indie, some people would call them shovelware type games. Games like Escape Room VR, Inner Voices, or Sinister Halloween VR. Some people would say Weeping Doll fits into this category. Um, let me first start off by saying that since horror is my favorite genre, I enjoy even these bottom tier games on some level. Like most of these games are broken. Like there's almost always some really terrible jank involved. But I mean, a lot of times it's so bad that it's good. It's one of those things where it's fun to laugh at the brokenness of the game. But I just enjoy horror games so much that generally the atmosphere and subject matter is enough to entertain me, uh, enough to anyway to make it worth my time. We'll say that. If not worth my money, certainly worth my time.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Will that change down the road when you start having all these banger horrors everywhere? You're getting your fix from every single game, and you're like, I mean, because there's certain games that I'm playing or that maybe I played in 2018 that if I looked at it now for the first time, I'd be like, I don't know if I want to try that. But in 2018, it was the bee's knees, bro. That's what you had. That's all you had. You just did it and you enjoyed it. I feel like there's just going to be a point where you kind of outgrow some of this stuff. Although I guess there's a point to be made that even a bad horror movie can be fun to watch, right? Sometimes more fun than a good one just because it's so bad. Or like you said, the content of these games or the story is impound or is intriguing enough. So
Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, if we ever get to the point where there's a lot of great VR horror games, I don't think that I'll enjoy these ones any less, but I think I'll play them a lot less.
yeah.
Like, uh, whenever I play one of these games, Escape Room VR Inner Voices is a good example. I enjoyed playing that game. It was broken. There was a lot of problems with it that made it very difficult to progress through the game. Um, but I enjoyed it. I mean, there were things I liked about it. Um, the story was certainly disturbing. Um, the visually it looked pretty good. I even found a secret area in the game that
Ooh,
I mean, I don't know how anybody would have stumbled upon it. I'm so thorough in the way that I look at these games that I noticed light shimmering through like the tiniest little crack, and I thought, why would there be a light behind this little wall here? That don't make sense. And it was just the tiniest little thing that I noticed. But I got up out of my seat and walked because you couldn't like in game walk beyond the wall. But I got up out of my seat just to see if I could physically walk through it, and I did. And there was a room with like an altar in it and a picture of like Dracula on the wall, not the movie Dracula, but the real life Dracula on the wall with a little like altar in front of it. It was really creepy, honestly.
that is creepy.
That I found this hidden in that game. Um, but it's that sort of thing that makes me love these kinds of games. You never know what you're going to find in there.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder what people go in to worship things in this game in secret. They're walking through walls and stuff. That's a weird thing to find in a hidden in a game in a horror game. That's kind of creepy, especially
Yeah,
since it's not like went down this wall. I hit a button and the wall opened. I walked in. No, you walked in a way that you're not supposed to be able to walk.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? No
yeah.
one would have found that. I guarantee. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's not something that I feel like I was supposed to find. It was really weird. We'll
That
just
is
say
weird.
that. Anyway, this is the bottom tier stuff, in my opinion. You can find a lot of this stuff on Steam. You can find some of it on Viport, and that's generally how I play these games. Is I'll find them on Viport. All right, just above this, I would say are the good horror games. Good horror games being games like Organ Quarter, Dement, Face Your Fears 2, just a ton of these games. I mean, you could probably list 20 right off the top of my head right now if I wanted to of good horror games. Uh, these games typically um, they run very well. That they're not broken like the bottom tier games. They have a good subject matter, but there's generally something about the good ones uh, that keeps them from being very good. Like it's generally something that breaks the immersion. Like that they might not have very good sound design. They might have dated graphics. Something that keeps you from fully being immersed in the game and buying into it 100%. Uh, that's typically what characterizes these games for me. Is I enjoy my time in them, but the whole time I'm in them, I'm thinking about how good they could have been if X, Y, or Z had been done with it to begin with.
Yeah, and that's this one to a T. Face Your Fears too. This one was kind of weird. Even the film, watching this video or this trailer, looks a little weird, and it kind of did. It kind of like when you moved around, it felt a little weird. I don't know if that was like something that they did or whatever. It was way better than the first Face Your Fears that you just sat in the bed and, which was cool when it first came out. This one was so much better. But like you said, it's like. there, but it just didn't quite make it. You know what I mean? Like it's still good, but it just wasn't um like you everything we wanted it to be.
Yeah, I enjoyed this game. I beat it. I played all the way through it. I enjoyed it. Um, we generally go back and forth with Cy on here about how graphics aren't everything in games. I feel like with horror games, they're more important than they are in general because so much of the experience with horror is being immersed and feeling like you're there. And if the graphics aren't up to snuff, then it's hard for you to make yourself believe that you're in this place, experiencing this thing. And I think the biggest problem with Face Your Fears specifically, Face Your Fears 2 specifically, is that it never got a PC version. This was a Quest 1 exclusive game, and it looked like a Quest 1 exclusive game. And while, I enjoyed it, um, I never could really fully immerse myself in it because it did look like a PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 game instead of something that was more realistic.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
All right. So then from the good games, we have the very good games. And very good games I would characterize as games like Paranormal Activity, The Lost Soul, The Exorcist Legion VR, or even Dread Halls. And I know that I just had spoken about how dated graphics can hold one of these games down from being immersive enough to be very good. I think Dread Halls is what I was talking a moment ago. Dread Halls is the exception to the rule. Dread Halls, uh, while the graphics are dated, the sound design and level design and design of the game overall is just so good that it's completely immersive. Like you feel like you're present in this game, and this one does a good job of being spooky and scary at the same time.
Yeah, no, this is one of the ones that I love to watch people, especially new people in VR, because it does such a good job of immersion, like you said, just because the sound design is so amazing, and they do a really good job of building suspense, and that's the biggest thing. Like with for most people in VR or in horror, is whether it's jump scares or whatever, is that suspense and building it and building it and building it, and then something happens. This thing, man, I'm walking around for 15 minutes before I see something going on. I'm talking smack to a gargoyle. Next thing I know, this thing's following me, bro. That scared the shit out of me. I turned around and that thing was in my face, dude, right after I was talking smack to it. That was the creepiest thing I've ever experienced in VR, probably outside of Resident Evil 7. This is a really good game.
That's exactly what I'm talking about here. This game uses sound to build dread in you. Dread Halls is a perfect name for this. It uses sound to put you on the edge of your seat, and then it happens, and it puts you out of your chair. Right when that gargoyle, uh, when you found out it was following you, that affected you on a physical level, right?
Yeah, absolutely creeped me out. And Scott Merrill just I think you might have he might have locked up or something, or I know I've still got a signal, so I'm by myself, it looks like, for a second. Anyway, Scott Merrill, Dread Halls with a Woodger haptic vest is amazing. And that tells me, Wes, that you're gonna want to get into some Dread Halls pretty soon here. Chat, let me know if you're seeing me and seeing Wes still frozen. At least then I'll know that I'm not talking to myself. I'm assuming I show that I've got a very strong signal, so I'm assuming we're good. Actually, I can look at the stream here. Pull this up real quick. Yeah, okay, I'm good. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if if he lost his dropped out or what happened. But for now, you get little roots in the thing. We lost Wes completely. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much the Roots show, and I'm taking over. I'm turn this thing around. No, so I definitely enjoyed Dread Halls, and I think Wes needs to get that vest, and he needs to do it soon because that would be amazing. Yeah. Oh, so I'm a little bit delayed. Well, yeah, I don't know. I guess there shouldn't be any delay. I don't know. So I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if I'm gonna. I'm assuming when he logs back in, he'll just be there. I'm reluctant to go on to the next topic here. But yeah, Wes was scared stiff for a minute there. It does seem like a no-brainer. Scion says haptic vest in horror games seems like a no-brainer. Although the $500 entry point, I need them to send me one, and then it's not coming out of pocket for sure. Let's see. I wonder if Wes is texting me or something. I don't know if he lost his internet or what. Are you
Yeah, I
there?
don't know what happened, man. I have no idea what that was. I thought for a minute that
Let me find
that
my.
my internet had went out, but I was able to bring up websites, and I just wasn't able to bring up Zoom
Hmm.
for whatever reason. And
That's weird.
I closed the thing out and tried it again, and now it works. So
Did you piss off China or something somehow? Maybe you did something you weren't supposed
probably
to do, and
I generally do
they.
that once or twice.
Yeah.
I did notice that it happened right when I snapped my fingers,
That was
like
kind of
because
cool.
it.
Yeah. Well, see, my first thing, I always look at my signal because I always wonder, okay, did I drop? And then once I was good. I was like, oh, I'm by myself. I got all starstruck and scared, and but yeah, no, Wes is back, and so basically, what I was saying is, uh, who was it? Somebody said that Scott Merrill says you should try, and I'm putting you. He said anybody. He said this game with a Wooger vest is amazing. You're getting chased. You can feel the monsters chasing you. And I said, oh, you just sold this vest to Wes then. 'Cause think about this. Any horror game with a vest, dude, would be amazing, right?
Yeah, yeah, dude. I got to imagine. It goes back to what we were talking about the sound design. Generally, any type of game like Dread Halls that's going to try to jump scare you is going to have a big audio element to that. So something like a Wooger, which makes you feel the audio, is only going to intensify that effect. So yeah, I could see that 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I want to try it.
I'm trying to get my chat to work here. Unless people
Uh,
just aren't talking,
no,
it's not
it's
working.
no, they said the chat works. I guess you're just not seeing it.
Yeah, let me see if I can we'll refresh it here. See what
A little
happens.
freshy, refreshy.
Give it a freshie.
Yeah, who doesn't love a freshie, right?
There we go. Welcome back. Thank you, Scott. All right. So basically the point I was trying to get across here with Dreadhouse specifically, it does this one thing so well, or a couple of things so well, but specifically the audio in this game might be some of the best, if not the best, audio that I've ever heard in a horror game. It does such a great job of keeping you uneasy while you're playing that you really don't think about the dated graphics in the game. Um, you absolutely they're good enough to allow you to feel presence in these halls, and trust me, when you happen upon one of these things that you find in here, and it turns around and you know it's looking at you, it's scary, man, and it makes you want to run, like physically in real life.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like a game I've been playing recently. And that's a testament, dude. Like when you feel like they've locked eyes on you and you need to run, um, I don't like it, Wes. I mean, I like it, but I don't like it. I need to get the hell away from that thing. And even though I know it can't hurt me in real life, I just don't want it to get me. And I need to get away. So
Well, yeah, what's that logical side of it is the reason why I can't quite wrap my head around people who say that they just can't play these games. Like we all know that they're not real, right? They're not actually going to hurt us in any way. So
I,
um,
I don't know. I've
I
seen
don't
some people
understand.
rip the headset off. And like man, somebody in there was about to kill him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And but I guess it's it's what you're used to, right? I mean, if Some people probably really get into movies too. Like they could be very sucked into watching a movie where you startle them just by talking to them or whatever. I mean, those type of people probably really get immersed in a game as well. It's almost jealous, really.
Yeah, I guess it's all about what we've been exposed to, right? It's about exposure.
Mm.
Like I can remember when I was 7 years old, and my favorite thing in the world when I was 7 years old was Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now think about that for a minute. Like I wouldn't ever let my kids watch this. I think like my 14-year-old daughter still hasn't watched these types of movies. You know what I mean? But at 7, I can remember drawing pictures with crayons and stuff of blood and all this crazy stuff. So this probably has a lot to do with why I really into this stuff now.
Yeah,
So I guess we're all different.
yeah,
That's
very true.
basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, I think that's the beauty of life is that we're all different. I love it.
Daniel Cass joins the chat, says, even Ancient Dungeon is scary to me. Should I play a true horror game? I think that you should do, and this is my advice to everyone who is averse to playing these sorts of games. You should start with one of these psychological horror or psychological thriller type games, one of these games that have darker subject matter and some uncomfortable, scenes.
Like
You should
transparent, right?
start you should start there. And if the adrenaline rush that you get from playing that is something that you enjoy, then you just baby step it up. And if you don't know what to play, our Discord invitation is in the description down below. Just ask me. I will set you up with a regimen that at the very end of it, you'll be playing Resident Evil 7 no problem. But we're going to take baby steps to get you there.
Or you'll be cursing Wes for the rest of your life, saying that son of a bitch gave me PTSD, and now I'm shaking everywhere I go.
You know what you should do first? You should go on Steam and pick up Caliban Below. It's a free experience that isn't scary, but it's very spooky, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I think that'd be a good place to start. It's very high quality and an enjoyable experience. I recommend it to everyone. It's free. It's free, bro.
Yeah, who doesn't love free?
All right. So, what sets apart these great games from the very good ones? So, I listed some games here. Uh, we said that we have Here They Lie. Oh no, we're on very good. We're not even made it to the great ones yet. Okay. So what sets apart the very good games from the good games? Well, I think I explained it earlier in when we were talking about what keeps the good games from being very good, right? I think in most cases it's polish, right? So like when you think about these games like the Exorcist, when you think about these games like Paranormal Activity, these games, uh, generally in terms of design, uh, what you're doing, the story, these games are pretty much on the same level with the good games we mentioned. What sets them apart is they're more immersive, right? The sound design, the graphics, uh, they're much more realistic and easy to lose yourself into. So with Dread Halls being the exception, and not really because the sound design, like I said, excellent in this game. But generally, what sets apart the very good horror games from the good ones is production value, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, and that's up with a lot of games, right? I mean, you can get to a certain level, but without that extra polish, spit and polish, right? That's what people really just makes a good game great. Absolutely.
Right. Well, let's talk about the great ones. So we've talked about good to very good. Now let's talk about the great ones. You can pretty much count on one hand the great horror games in VR, and this is unfortunate because again, they're so great. Examples of great horror games, in my opinion: Here They Lie, Lies Beneath, Rush of Blood, Resident Evil 7. These are all great horror games. Um, these are the games that uh, generally scare the crap out of you. That not only do they have the high production value, they generally have some story that you're following. Um, and what really sets these games apart from everything else, these are the ones that go for it, right? These are most of the time, people that are developing these games pull their punches because they're trying to sell their games to a wide audience and sell as many of them as they can. So they feel like if they get too graphic with it, or this is my speculation, by the way, I've never worked at one of these places. I feel like they feel like if they get too graphic or disturbing with what they're doing in their game, that it's not going to appeal to as many people. But the great ones, the really great horror games, they're not concerned with this at all. They want to disturb people. They understand that this is what's going to get people talking, that this is what's going to make people remember their game 10 years from now, is just the terror, the abject terror that they felt when they were in this game. And Roots, I mean, with the exception of Lies Beneath, uh, all those games I listed here, what do they all have in common?
Sony.
They're all PlayStation VR exclusive, which is the odd thing. For the life of me, I will never understand why it's the bigger studios that went for it, right? It's always the smaller studios, the mid to small size studios that pull their punches back in these horror games. But when you talk about the most visceral game, the one that really went for it most, it's a game from Capcom, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. But it's one of those things that I guess you kind of said it just a minute ago. They're pulling the punches because they want to sell the games. They're worried. They're legitimately worried, or at least it's on their mind. Whereas a Sony game or a Capcom game, the big boys, even if it was a dud, which it's not gonna be, but even if it was, they could afford to eat that loss. Whereas maybe a smaller studio, like everything hinges on this game, especially in VR. A lot of these games, that's it, dude. Like if your game doesn't make it, especially early on, we're not talking about those developers anymore. They're gone, you know. So that's why it's such a good to see like Lies Beneath and stuff, and because it's just seeing those things that just are disturbing and creating those moments. Like I'm watching that Rush of Blood trailer I was playing a second ago. I want to play that damn game again. There's freaking clowns walking at. I mean, there was so many moments where you were just like, "Oh my god, there's things. I mean, things are coming at you, creepy fucking things that you don't even ever want to see coming at you." You know what I mean? It was just so good, and I didn't get my fill of Rush of Blood, Wes. I know I say that a lot, but I need them to transfer it over. I need to get a PSVR again.
Yeah, Rush of Blood's an interesting one because I struggled with whether or not I should include it in that list of great horror game because it's a rail shooter at the end of the day. Uh, but when you think about the things that you see and the things that happen in that game, it's 100% a horror game. It's as much a horror game as it is a rail shooter.
Mm.
So yeah, I think I had to include it, and it's unfortunate, Roots, that these great ones uh, were all PlayStation VR games. And the reason I say that is I started on PlayStation VR games. That these were the first games that I played in VR. Resident Evil
Mm.
7, Rush of Blood, Here They Lie. These games all had demos available on the disc that came with my first VR headset. This was literally these games are what sold me on VR. And I've been searching ever since then to find something on their level, and it's just not there. And that's not me speaking out of nostalgia. It's just the truth. These are the best horror games in VR, and I started at the top, and nothing else has ever lived up to it. Lies Beneath is a good exception. Lies Beneath, um, a great game, even though it's just as much an action game as a horror game. There's some disturbing imagery in it, and a very disturbing story with it. It's a great horror game as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I almost want to laugh when you're talking about Rush of Blood, saying it is a rail shooter, which it is a rail shooter, and how some people could say it's not a horror, but you go tell somebody that maybe goes in that game that is terrified of clowns, that's just a rail shooter, bro. They'll
Hmm.
fucking punch you in the face, dude. Like some people really are like deathly afraid of clowns, and so that's the imagery you want, right? You want to push that button, and yeah, I think they did a really good job.
Well, I mean, not just that. There's people getting sawed in half in that game, just as atmospheres, stuff in the background.
Yeah,
People getting sawed in half. There's a stage with pig carcasses writhing and screaming. You know, great audio in that, by the way. That it sends chills down your spine. There's uh, think about that scary. I don't know. It's a wraith or some kind of a specter. The one that moves around real fast and zips all over the level. You know which one I'm talking about? That thing is terrifying.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, I would definitely say it's a horror game. And then, I mean, I guess, and like you said, this one's more. It's a very action game, but it's also a horror game. So I guess there really is no. Well, we just went through all those different types of horror games that are all considered. So
Yeah. Yeah, those are the great ones. And yeah, Drew, good point, Drew. He says it's roller coaster rails. Yeah, exactly. Resident Evil, Lipnock says Resident Evil 7 in VR is arguably one of the best VR games in general since its release. I agree. It's my favorite. I call, Half-Life Alex and The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners technically better games, but I don't like them more than I like Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7's my favorite VR game, and it's interesting that even to this day, it's considered one of the best VR games when it's 100% seated gamepad game.
yeah, well, that's definitely a 100% gamepad game. I don't care if it's a gamepad game or not. Like you said, Resident Evil 7 is one of the best, right? And it was gamepad, and I just think people need to not worry about that. So that's my
Scion says there are people who are not scared of ghosts or demons at all. Everyone has different triggers. That's correct, and that's why Rush of Blood's so great because it hits everybody's trigger, right? Whether it be clowns or ghosts or demons or spiders, it's all in there, bro. It's all in there.
Yeah, they'll get you somehow, and that's where I think AI is going to be amazing. Once it eventually gets introduced with sensors and stuff, because it'll be right off the bat. They'll just start testing you in the beginning. Like maybe like you go into the your tutorial and weird shit'll start happening and you don't even know that they're finding out what freaks you out. And now this game is tailored to you. That sounds scary actually.
There's actually a game like that. It was one of the first VR games I bought on PC. It's a game called Nevermind. It was a flat game adapted into VR. The performance was horrible in it, but it's a great concept. The game supports some kind of heart monitor, so it like tracks your pulse and blood pressure or whatever. And the premise of the game is that you're entering people's minds through some sort of technology, and they put you into these literal nightmare scapes. These are people who have, uh, PTSD trauma type stuff that have happened to them, and you're trying to work your way through their mind physically to help them overcome their fears. But the game takes your biofeedback from the heart monitor, and it's supposed to um, make note of what scares you and then really lean into that. And now I don't know how it works. I didn't play it with the heart monitor. I just played through it without. But it's certainly a concept ahead of its time, and I do think we have games like that coming in the future.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Sure.
Um, anyway, I think that's a pretty good baseline now for horror games in VR. All the different types of games and what sets them apart. You know, bottom tier to good, good to very good to great. I think we kind of have a good framework now that we can move forward with our Wraith, the Oblivion Afterlife discussion. Um, and Roots, I felt it was important for us to lay this down because this game specifically, you start off thinking that it's going to be one type of game, but by the end of it, it's very different than what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, our first initial thing was that it was kind of you're just kind of going and doing things. I mean, it's just kind of leading you in a story, right? Which it is. I mean, the story's amazing. Um, but it definitely is different than what we thought in the beginning, I think.
Yeah, yeah. The game starts out, and you get this. Well, first of all, let's back up a minute here. We do need to acknowledge that we were given review keys for this game from Fast Travel Games. I'd like to thank our friends at Fast Travel Games for providing us with review access to this game. This was a game that anybody who watches this channel knows I've been very excited for this game because, like I've said from the top of the show here, there aren't very many great horror games. There aren't a whole lot of very good ones. So when I heard that we were getting one from Fast Travel Games, I know these people over there, they have similar tastes to me. Um, so I was excited, right? I knew that they had the potential to make a really good game here. How good, uh, we wouldn't know until we got our hands on it. And when I started in to this game, uh, I was immediately afraid that I had overhyped this game to myself because it is a very slow burn at the beginning. It's very story driven. It's a bit of a fetch quest at the beginning. And at the beginning, it's not scary. It's spooky. It's very spooky, but it isn't very scary.
No, yeah, I was even telling you, I was wandering around and I was like, dude, it's been like an hour and a half, 2 hours. I seen a crack in a wall. I was told to walk quietly, but there was nothing there. So I was like, I deliberately ran around loud on purpose. I was like, where is everybody? So yeah, there was the initial thought, was definitely that it was more of exactly like you said, it was a slow burn. I didn't do this. When I first went through the first time, I played it on the Quest, right? And then I moved over to the PC VR, and I have only grabbed things from a distance once or twice, Wes. I think I forgot that I could even do that. I don't know if that's hindered my game or made it harder in some ways, but just watching this beginning part is blowing me away that I can grab stuff from a distance and now remembering that.
Yeah, it uses the Half-Life Alex mechanic where you grab things and then you kind of flick them towards you and catch them out of the air,
Yeah.
which is effective most of the time. There are scenarios where you'll find things in cabinets, in short cabinets, and you'll try to flip them to yourself, and it'll smack the top of the cabinet and then fall on the ground. That can be annoying, but generally you'll get it on the second try when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am going to be using it every time now. Forgot it was there.
But anyway, despite the slow burn of the game, I did decide to play on with it because there are some things that this game does well from the very start. And you heard me earlier describe as probably the most important aspect of any horror game is audio. And thankfully, this game does that very, very well. In fact, I would say that the excellent audio design of this game is the foundation of the game. If it weren't so good from an audio standpoint, this game wouldn't be nearly as good as it actually is.
Yeah. It's very polished too. The acting is very good as well. The story, everything about it, I would say, especially the sound is really good. And you even told me when I guess the devs told you as well when you gave me the key to make sure I use my headphones, because that you really want to be immersed in there, and
Yeah.
definitely amazing.
Yeah, headphones are important here because every aspect of the audio is top notch. It's a very story driven game. And like Roots just mentioned, that the voice acting is very good. But on top of that, the game also does a good job of setting the tone through noises as you walk through the house, or music, if you can even call it that. You know, these tones that are playing in the background to kind of set your mood to build dread. Uh, and on top of that, on top of the mood stuff, on top of the voice acting, uh, when you finally get to the part of the game where you meet the enemies, when they catch you, it is blood curdling. That really, I think the sounds that those things make when they grab you is probably the scariest thing in the game.
Yeah, it just that look that I was talking about a little earlier when you catch their eye and they come bolting at you. I I I I wanted to run so bad, and I could hear the fucking thing behind me, and it was chasing me for quite a ways, dude, and I thought I was about to get away. But I didn't never knew if I was how far or how close this thing was to me until all of a sudden I was caught, screeched, and whipped around and whatever all the stuff that happens is definitely absolutely. What's funny is I had almost convinced myself that there was no creatures, because it was so long. It was such a long time that it really did shock me. And then at once I saw that was from then on. It was like, fuck, man, I kind of missed the empty house. It was nice and cozy. It's not
Yeah,
cozy anymore, Wes.
this house gets more and more difficult to navigate the further you get into the game. Uh, eh, you know, well, let's just say it. You know, it's the halfway point of the game. This game changes dramatically at the halfway point of the game. Uh, when you get to the halfway point of the game, the story takes a twist, and at that point, that's when you start to see the majority of the enemies in the game. And the enemies of the game tie into the story. And while there aren't a lot of them, they roam the halls and different areas of this house. And at the start, they each kind of have their own spot that you'll find them in. But as you progress, the boundaries kind of fade into one another. And now the whole house is just, you never know what's going to be around the corner. And it's unfortunate, Roots, because uh, this game starts off making you think that it's going to be a good game, and it gets a lot better after the midway point. But the way things are structured, particularly with regards to PCVR, people are trying to find out within 2 hours whether a game's worth keeping or not, and because of the refund policy, right? So uh, they'll play it for 2 hours, and then they'll decide whether or not they want to get their money back. But beyond that, uh, people will go to streams, right? They'll go to streams to watch and see how good the game is. Well, these streams typically are going to be in the first 2 to 3 hours of the game. This game is a different game from the midway point on, drastically different. And it's not that it's not good before, it's good to start with, but it becomes a very good game later, um, because the story becomes very compelling, disturbing. Even some of the imagery um, is brutal, and uh, beyond uh, the audio design of it. Um, there's a lot else to like here. As you progress through the game, the map opens up to you. It's a very large estate. But as the map opens up, it becomes harder to navigate because of all of the different enemies and things that could be around any corner. Um, it's just uh, I don't know, man. I think that if people are judging this by the first 4 to 5 hours of the game, they're making a mistake here, because uh, it's certainly not as good as you would think from watching 90% of the streams out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was one of the things too that I noticed today when I had just happened to going through the Facebook group. I saw somebody streaming the game, and I happened to see, and it had been before I'd even gotten to a creature, and I realized, oh, there are creatures, right? And I immediately shut it off because I didn't want to ruin it. But that's the thing too, is like they're not going to get to that point, and then I don't know, man. I mean, are you going to really play through the game that you just watched all the stuff? I streaming is kind of weird. It's like it's cool to watch, but at the same time, you're kind of ruining it, right? So
Well, that was the thing. You know, at the midway point, like I said a moment ago, the story takes a twist, and that's when the game gets good. So, literally, if you want to make a gameplay video of this when the game's at its best,
do the
then
twist.
you're immediately ruining the story. It takes 5 minutes, and somebody will understand a very important part of the story that you don't want to spoil. So it's kind of a catch 22. So I chose not to stream it because I didn't want to do that. That don't mean I won't go back at some point after the game's been out a while and show people. But it's certainly something that you shouldn't judge from a first impressions video.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely. I mean, if this was one of those things where you were thinking that this game, you've heard from people or you've watched videos and it seemed a little slow, it is a little slow in the beginning, but it's not a bad slow. I've enjoyed the story the entire time. You know what's funny, Wes? Okay, now, and I don't know if you got this award or not. The first time I came to one of those creatures, and I was trying to get by, I died so many times, and I said, man, I literally said, dude, this is fucking annoying. And then it popped up and it said like I got the annoying award. And I was like, how crazy, because I literally had just said that, so they clearly knew that that was going to annoy the hell out of people to die to that thing so many times in a row. And it was because I don't know if it's intentional, Wes, or not, but as I'm trying to navigate with around these things sometimes, it's very difficult. Like it's almost like they're reading my mind. It's starting it like I start to try to go one way and it's shifting, and I just don't know where the hell this thing is going. There's no real rhyme or reason on how they're moving. And I think that's by
Right.
design, because you just, as you're trying to go around this pillar, and you get this icon or something. It's kind of like a soul suck or something. I don't know. You could, it's kind of like any other stealth game, right? You know, okay, I can't be seen for more than a second more and I'm screwed. And so you'll try to move, and I don't know, man. It's definitely creepy.
All right. So I guess we should talk about that. We've already established that this is a very story driven game that is audio heavy. It's based on the audio. But we haven't really talked about how the gameplay is. It's not just story here. This is a game. It's largely a fetch quest, but it's a stealth game. The whole challenge to this game is trying to collect the items that you need to progress the story without being seen by the evil shit that is within this manor. Now, I would say that the bulk of the gameplay is like Home Sweet Home. I don't. For those of you who've played Home Sweet Home out there, it's that type of you don't want to run, you want to walk. And Bruce, I don't know about you, but that some of these enemies, uh, especially the ones you died a lot to, uh, it's sound based, right? If you make noise, they hear you and they come after you. So after a while, it got to the point where I would just crouch the whole time because you can't run and make noise while you're crouched. Uh, so I just basically, as soon as I would go down that corridor, I would hit the crouch button and just crawl my way through it the whole time. And it is frustrating because after you crawl slowly down this hallway and then through this other room and you almost get to where you want to be, you'll step on glass and that thing will hear you, and it's over if it hears you, right?
Yeah, it comes screeching, running at you. Yeah, it's definitely makes you think on how you're gonna move. And I was more brazen in the beginning, running around, and then I found out it was not a good idea, and I didn't crawl, but I definitely was more cautious, slow. But and I thought that some of the things as far as that were cool to me were some of the tools you used, like the camera, the flashlight. Although I will confess the flashlight confused me a little bit with the flash, and I was wasting it because I guess you don't have unlimited flashlight, Wes. And it's an actual
Right.
tool. You need it to open stuff. And I found myself in a position where I couldn't progress. I had to start over because I had wasted all my juice, and
Yeah.
you need that juice. So,
All right. So pro tips here for people who are going to play this game. The flashlight Roots is talking about is an integral part of the game. Not only do you need it to, to be able to see, which it isn't the best tool for that, and we'll get to some of the negative things in a minute. But you also need it to open up certain pathways, and it's also your last line of defense against the enemies. If they get close to you, if you see them coming, there's a flash uh, functionality, and if you flash it in these at these enemies, they'll pause for 2 or 3 seconds, and sometimes that's the difference. Uh, I mean, most of the times it
it's
doesn't
not
matter; they're
enough
still going to
time,
get
dude.
you,
It's not
right?
enough.
But sometimes there was a couple of cases where that flash was the difference between me dying and making it. So it is key. Now, the pro tip here with this thing is the energy level of the flashlight. They call it pathos. When your pathos meter runs down, and it runs down quickly, you can get some of that back by saving. Uh, Now you can't just sit and save over and over again and charge it all the way up. But if you wait 5 minutes, you can save again and get some more. Now the key here is to save twice. Save once, you'll get your some energy for your light, and then save again. And now you have your game saved with that energy that you just got.
Mm,
So the next time when you spawn into the game, you can immediately save again, and this much energy will
mm.
become this, and then you can save that. You know what I'm saying? So you want to save a lot in this game, and you want to always do it twice so that you're charging up your flashlight.
Mm.
So it's not completely annoying when you die repeatedly, because if you die like 3 or 4 times, you'll be able to fully charge your flashlight.
Oh, what a good tip. Another good tip from Traveling Man says you got to, and I knew this because I was wondering why there was rocks everywhere. You got to throw stuff to distract things. And if you think about it, you just throw the rock, get them going one way, and then run around the other way.
That
Um,
never worked for me. I tried that, but
did
they
you?
always found me out. Yeah.
Yeah, you weren't throwing the rock right. I never tried it. I just saw them on the ground, and I assumed that's what I was going to do. And Scion says that's a hack, and it is a hack. It's a hack if you do it the way that my mind started thinking. Save it twice, quit the game, restart, and then save again, and and get up to the build your thing, and then after 3 or 4 restarts, your thing's full, and you can just go. Although I would
Well,
never
it's
do
not
it that way.
it's not just that either. You want to save often, because there is a big number of collectibles in this game, and if you want to get all of them, they're all story related. They all give you bits and pieces of the backstory. Most of it's stuff you can read. Um, but if you're a completionist and you want to get all that stuff, uh, you know, say you pick up 2 or 3 things and then you get killed before you save, then that stuff goes back to where it was at.
Hmm.
There are also more important items that you have to progress the game. But it's easy, especially in the later stages of the game, to get killed. So you need to always be aware where your save points are at, and you pretty much want to save every time that you're near one. Not only to charge your flashlight, but to save your progress. because you're going to die a lot in this game. I've died. There are two specific enemies that gave me fits. It took me forever to get around them. And there were periods of time where I doubted myself, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through this, you know?
That's a sign of a good game, right? You know what I liked about this? The storytelling was it was not one way. Like you said, like you had these visions where they're talking and they're doing stuff. Then you had actual conversations. You were just overhearing a conversation, and then you had the letters, right? And all of them are all filling in these gaps, right? And as I'm going along and the story's progressing, I mean, I guess it shouldn't be any surprise. I'm intrigued. I want to know what the hell's going on. I want to know how this story, this is a seance, bro. It's a rich man, six people seance, just hang out for the weekend. Everyone's gonna go home. Didn't happen that way. I want to know what happened, and this is one of the. It's just such an amazing story.
Yeah, and it's cool how they tell it too, because you're finding artifacts from all six members of the story, right? There are six characters in the game, and as you find these artifacts, the story's being told from each character's perspective. So you get bits and pieces of it, but it's never always through your character Ed's eyes. You'll see things through his wife's eyes that are kind of a revelation, and you'll see things through this character's eyes. And basically, you're getting the same story, but what you're finding out are the different characters' motivations, why they're here, why certain things are happening based on what their agenda is for being here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's another one of the tools that you get is a camera, right? And that just you go around and use that to find stuff, I guess, right?
Yeah, especially in the first half of the game, a lot of what you're collecting is just memories. You're basically using your camera to unlock these sort of miniature cinema sequences. Let's talk about that for a minute, Roots. Like, I thought it was clever how they did this because there's so many of these scenes that tell the story. And it's cool because it is a remnant of a memory. You would expect it to look the way that it does. Now, with that said, some of the scenes later in the game, some of the more gruesome ones, I would have preferred more of a traditional cinema scene because a lot of the gory detail gets lost in the way that they portray the cutscenes here.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you think it was really dark in some places? I,
That was one of the biggest things when we were talking a minute ago, and I said we'll get to the negatives. Uh, yeah, it was unfair some of these spots that you're in because it's so dark that with the flashlight you can't see crap.
well, you know what's funny is even in this, and I noticed it more on the PC than from the Quest because I didn't have this problem. I actually got to a point where um you have a key, right? And you got to go into this door, and I couldn't see the keyhole.
Yep.
I had to go to a different door and look at it and say, okay, well, the key is on because I was trying on the right door. It was on the left door. And I was starting to doubt that there was even a fucking lock there because I couldn't find the thing. I'm like, you know what I mean? Eventually I finally found it, but I ended up walking around, wandering around for a while, thinking maybe I missed something. I went the wrong way, and I'm like, no, this is the door. I have to go through this door. It was very weird, but but it
Yeah.
was just too dark in that spot.
Yeah, there were two specific sequences in this game where it was so dark and your flashlight runs out fast. And after it's gone, it's gone. I mean, you occasionally find a little photograph that'll recharge it a little bit, but that don't last very long. And
And you need it.
there, yeah,
It's not
and
just
there
light.
there are yeah. I mean, and it even don't work that well when you do have it. But there are two specific sequences in this game that are so dark that you're literally just fumbling around, trying to find some bit of light off in the distance to gather your bearings with, because you'll do a full 360 and not see crap, like nothing, pitch black. And I felt that that was kind of unfair and frustrating, especially since one of these very dark scenes had a new enemy in it. And it was one of the scariest enemies in the game. And this goes back to what I said earlier when someone said the LCD screen makes these games not as scary. Well, that was not the case here, because I couldn't see Jack because of this LCD screen. And when I came upon this one enemy, I damn near had a heart attack, man, because all of it moves very quietly. It doesn't have footsteps like some of these other ones do. It moves very quietly, and all of a sudden, it has you, and it shrieks, blood curdling shriek out of nowhere, dude. I thought I was gonna die.
That's what you want, though, man. If it can elicit this fear from Wes, that tells you it's doing a good job for sure.
Yeah, it was very scary that first time. What was frustrating about it was the ensuing 20 attempts that it took me fumbling around in the dark, trying not to get caught by this thing when I couldn't see it, and literally having to find your way out of a very large, uh, I wouldn't even just call it a room. I'd call it like a building. You have to find your way out of a large, dark building where all the doors are locked except for one, and it's way over on the other side, and you can't see your way to get around there. Like literally, eventually, what I had to do is I was playing on virtual desktop. I had to turn the gamma all the way up as far as it would go, and then move so slowly that when I detected that the enemy was 5 feet in front of me, like about to get me, run in the opposite direction and try to get on some other side of some kind of a barrier, whether it be a table or a couch or a bookshelf, and then go around it to get to the other side of it. And still, I mean, it's so dark you don't know where you're going. You're just kind of going over there hoping that you stumble upon the exit, which eventually I did. But man, it took a bunch of tries before I did.
There's a lot of locked doors in this mansion, aren't there? This guy must have been paranoid or something. That's one thing that I noticed, especially when I first got to. It was really noticeable when you get to the second area. And I was like, my God! Like everywhere I looked, locked doors. And then all of a sudden, when things are coming around, they're flying open. When I don't want them to be open, I'm trying to make it through a room, and all of a sudden the doors come flying open, and then she's standing right there. Oh my God. Very creepy. Very
Yeah,
creepy.
eye on the icon nailed it. He says the broken woman area was very dark. Yeah, it was the broken woman is what I'm talking about. Um, yeah, that the first time the broken woman grabbed me, it was scary, and that's something else I want to mention on the positive side with this game, Roots. You know, when it comes to stealth games, they can be very frustrating and annoying. They almost all are. Even the good ones get very frustrating. What sets this one apart from a game like Home Sweet Home, you can sometimes get away. So you go from this sensation of playing a game like Intruders or Home Sweet Home to all of a sudden
You're
chase
done.
sequence. You're in Resident Evil 7 and Jack's chasing you. That's uh that's where a lot of the value, scare factor wise, comes from this game, is in the chase, because there's this period between when they see you and when they get you where you're trying to get away, and that's when you're scared. That's when you're the most scared in this game, is when they're chasing after you. So it's not like a Home Sweet Home or Intruders where you're just dead immediately. A lot of the time there is a chase, and it's in that chase where the real value and scare factor lies in this game.
It just depends on how close you are. And if you're too close, you ain't getting away, bro. I
Oh
don't
no,
care,
no,
you know. Because that's the thing is that's it's almost you're almost painstakingly too slow when you're even when you're running. But like Wes said, you're not really running much in this game, especially later on in the game. And that's what's creepy about it is you just can't. You're not running fast. You want to get away from this thing, but you can't. It's it's crazy.
yeah. There are some that you can and some that you can't, but there's two specifically that you're just screwed. If they see you, they'll get you. But the thing is they see you from way across the way. So you do try, right?
Mm.
Even if you know they're going to get you, you do try to get away. And there are cases when you do actually make it because there's certain areas they won't walk into.
Well, and
So
I ran one time west through a door, and the thing was right on my butt, and the door slammed shut behind me and locked. And it was like one of those times I was glad that the locked doors, because that
yeah,
happens a lot, man. There's some weird stuff going on with the house as well too, and it's just it's everything you would want from a horror game. You just have to realize that it's not going to really get creepy horror till about like Wes said, halfway through. And it took me about 3.5 hours to get to that point, somewhere around there.
yeah,
So
yeah. That's accurate. It takes about 3 or 4 hours before this game really gets going. So that's important to know. Don't refund it. If you like horror games, don't refund it because it does get better. Before we give our final verdict on the game, Roots, I want to talk a little bit about the graphics of the game. Um, you know, if you're talking about a PCVR game, I would call it average to good. If you're talking about a standalone game, I would call it very, very good. Like the Quest version of this game isn't on the level of the PC version. I don't that's not what I'm saying. But this game compared to other Quest games is a very good looking game.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it was one of the things that I noticed as well, is that there really didn't seem. I mean, there was some differences, but like all the things that matter, especially the character models, and I mean, it really, you almost couldn't tell a difference in a lot of ways in this game. It is phenomenal that they made it look this good, and it's just a really good game.
Yeah, pretty much the same resolution and textures going on across the versions. The differences are minor. They're lighting and shadow differences, stuff like that. The little small things. There's a little bit less shimmer on the PC version, which I mean, when I say a little bit less, I mean there's a little bit on the Quest 2 version, and there's pretty much none on the PC version. But it's a good looking game. It's sufficient, and I wouldn't say that it's um, that there's enough of a difference to make somebody think that they need to play the PC game. You'll get the full experience on Oculus Quest 2 here. Now, I have not tried it on Quest 1. I can't vouch for this on Quest 1, but it's one of the best looking games on Quest 2. And it's evident immediately when you look down at your hands, your mangled arms, and it's disgusting on a level like you normally don't see on standalone.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
Normally the textures on the standalone games, while they can be detailed, aren't they don't have depth. That's normally like one of the big differences between a PC game and a standalone game is that the textures on standalone all seem to be pretty flat. That's not the case here. These have good 3D depth to them, even if they're not the most detailed textures in the world.
yeah, absolutely. It looks really good. So,
Yeah.
and you were saying that if you played the Quest version, you wouldn't necessarily need to play the PC VR version. But the good news is with cross-buy, you have both options. You don't even have to choose. You get to do both. Best of both worlds. And that's exactly what I did. I started out with the Quest 2 version because that's what we were given before a week before it came out. Um, and then I switched over to the PC VR version and just to see how it played with Link and just see how it looked. And then I ended up just playing that way the entire rest of the time. So
Yeah. I started out playing it on Quest, and then the second session I played on my G2 with Revive, and that was the biggest difference I could tell. I would say that the difference between playing it on Quest standalone and Quest with virtual desktop was pretty minimal, but the difference between playing it standalone versus playing it on the G2 was a little bit more. But I don't think that it was, uh, you know, anything in the software. I just think it was that panel is it's
so
such a
good.
high resolution panel. I noticed things on the G2 that I didn't notice playing it on the Quest, whether it be PC or not. Like, for example, I noticed Ed Miller's beard stubble on the G2, which isn't something that I really pay much attention to on the other versions. It's a small thing, but it's something that I noticed that I didn't notice playing it on the Quest. It's a very good looking game, no matter which way you play it. The majority of my gameplay was on Quest 2 with Virtual Desktop, just out of sheer convenience. Like it was the easiest thing for me to do was just pick it up and play it that way.
Yeah. Well, that's something to be said about convenience, right? Hussein X wants to know if it has cloud save or not. I don't know. Do you know that answer was?
I'm not sure if it cloud saves. I know it doesn't cross save. So like when I went from Quest into my PC version, I had to start over.
Me too.
And it's
Yeah.
part of the reason why I didn't move back to Quest. After I made so much progress on my PC, I didn't want to back up. So I just finished it out on PC.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I spent so much time in that first session in the PCVR that I progressed further, and I was like, I don't want to have to go back and do it more and do it all over again. So
Yeah. Eye on the icon says always close doors behind you. Yes, this is something that I always do whenever I play any game. And I've had people comment on it too on my videos before, like, dude, you never miss a door. Yeah, like you play enough horror games, you do that shit because you don't want things to be able to walk up behind you.
yeah, I need to learn that lesson, Wes. I'm still trying to learn it the hard way, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, so I think we've pretty much covered it here. It's a game that runs well, it looks good, sounds absolutely awesome across all three methods that we use to play it. It runs good on Revive. It's a story driven stealth game, but there are periods of chase. It's not all stealth. Um, so it's unique in that manner. It's a stealth fetch quest over a very large map that opens up as you go. It's a slow burn at first, but by the time you reach the 3, 4, 5 hour mark, the story twists and the game becomes a lot more scary and a lot more difficult. Um, so then that brings us to how good is it? Is it a bottom tier game? Is it good? Like, let me bring my list up here just so we can have some comparisons here. Is it bottom tier like Escape Room VR, Inner Voices? Is it good like Organ Quarter, Dement, Face Your Fears 2? Is it very good like Paranormal Activity, The Lost Soul, Exorcist Legion VR, Dread Halls? Or is it great like Here They Lie, Lies Beneath, Rush of Blood, Resident Evil 7? Um, well, I'm not going to say it. First, I'm going to ask you, Roots, on the scale here. Bottom tier, good, very good, great. Where would you put this game?
I'd have to put it in great because it hits all the categories. Because even the sound is so good, the gameplay is amazing, the visuals, the story, like everything is polished, right? Even the voice acting, man. And that's one of the things that drives me crazy about story games that like everything is amazing, and but then the actors suck. Like, would you ever go watch a movie where actors suck? Like it's almost like these developers, some of these game developers, they really believe that the acting doesn't matter, and it's like, no dude, the acting is everything. And no, I would put it in the great category if it was me, for sure.
Well, it certainly does a lot of things very well, and it does some things better than any other game almost. Like again, I can't express enough just how good the audio design of this game is. I would put it on tier with Dread Halls. It's that good, or maybe even better. This might be the best uh, audio that I've heard in a horror game. Period. Like it's that good, and again, it's the foundation upon which the rest of the game um, is built. Now, with that said, when I think about the very frustrating dark areas that I had to play through, and it was pretty much luck that I made it through them. When I think about the fact that it takes 4 hours before the game even really gets
Mm.
going, I would say that this is a very good game. I wouldn't say that it's up there with the Resident Evils or Here They Lie or even Rush of Blood. But it's toward the top of very good. I would say it's like a 8.5 out of 10. This game,
Yeah,
uh, it's very good, almost great, but not quite there in my opinion.
yeah, it's really good. I enjoyed it. So I definitely, it's a definite recommend for me. I'm sure it is for you as well.
100%, 100%. This game is what is it? $30
30
on
bucks.
Oculus.
That's what I was going to ask you. What do you think on the cost?
I think it's right on. This is uh, it's a quality enough game, and it's long enough. It tells an interesting story, and on top of the story, the gameplay is there, and the scares are there. I was interested, Roots, in some of the people I heard give some impressions on this game, having not finished it yet, but had made it pretty far through. They'd made it a little farther than halfway. Said that they hadn't really gotten scared yet, which by the time you hit halfway point, have been some scary stuff in it, right? You've been through that one corridor there where you had to fetch those items and meet that one enemy.
Mm,
That's scary to me, anyway. And I'm not easy to scare, so I was kind of surprised to hear that. But no, I think it's all there. I think it's a very good story. I think it's a long enough game. I think the gameplay is challenging and fun. And again, I think that it's very scary, terrifying at times even. So yeah, I think it's a definite recommend at $30 here, and especially when you consider that it's cross buy. I mean, it's kind of a no brainer if you have both platforms.
absolutely. Traveling Man has a good point. It says it has lore that you can get into, and I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, Eye on the Icon says I love Evil Ed's narration. Yeah, that's the shadow, and they talk quite a bit about the shadow on on the upload promotion leading up to the launch of this game. There is a lot of lore here, and the reason why there's a lot of lore here is that there is this game isn't like a standalone. This is based in a larger universe, the World of Darkness universe, and this Wraith is actually based on a role playing game from many years back. So while the story is unique, the universe and the beings in the universe are certainly not.
Yeah, absolutely. Radio Runt says that he would rather buy Star Wars Pinball, and that does not shock me at all since he doesn't do horror games. I wouldn't play this game if I were you, Radio Runt. Like you don't want to play zombie Saints and Sinners. I'm definitely not going to put you in this one. This would scare the hell out of you.
Yeah, yeah. If Saints and Sinners scares you, this one's going to give you a heart attack.
Yeah,
If you make it,
that far.
past the first 3 or 4 hours. Yeah,
So let me ask you this: do you think that that's going to be a problem? Do you think a lot of people are going to not make it to that point? Which
yeah.
is
I
a real
think a lot of
shame.
people. I think that I think that people on PC are going to refund the game before it gets good. I think that people on Quest and especially PlayStation VR are a lot less likely to refund the game. Um, and again, it's gotten some really good reviews. It hasn't really gotten a lot of bad reviews, but I feel like there's a lot of there's a few people not reviewing it because they think it's bad because they didn't play deep enough into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um, and I don't know, man. It's interesting to me. Like most reviews will give this at least an 8 out of 10, and that's pretty damn good if you ask me.
yeah,
Um, it's a very good game. It's among my, I put it on tier with The Exorcist Legion VR, Paranormal Activity. It's Dread Halls. It's as good as those games are.
yeah. I'd say it was a little bit better than those games, but it definitely like maybe in between those games and the other tier.
Certainly, the gameplay is like when you think about The Exorcist or Paranormal Activity. What are you doing really? You're just kind of moving around. You don't have any of the danger that this game gives you. Like there aren't things that are going to get you. So yeah, I think that you're right. They probably is a little better than those games.
Yeah, yeah, but definitely recommend. Definitely worth the price of admission. And if you like horror games, you need to get this game.
All right. I think that's going to wrap us up. So stay tuned, friends. We've got lots of content coming over the next week. I've got a capture card coming tomorrow, Roots, so I can make some PlayStation videos.
It's funny, dude. You're because you had didn't you had a capture card at one time, right?
Yeah.
And so did I. And
Yeah.
I sold it, and I'm probably gonna end up buying one again. So
I had an Elgato HD60 Pro, and I sold it for a substantial profit.
mhm.
But the one I've got coming now is actually off-brand one from Amazon that has like 1,000 good reviews.
you
So I'm going to give it a shot.
you know what I've got coming, Wes? I've got a 6 foot cable for my Oculus Quest with a elbow for it that's specific. I didn't know this about the batteries. What is it? Is it DP or DB or there's a specific or PD. I don't know what the letters are, but it's the fast charging doesn't work with the Oculus Quest, but there's specific batteries that have a certain thing that you can you can charge faster with this certain cable or plug. Uh, I wish I knew exactly what I was talking about name wise. I'm sure somebody in the chat knows what I'm talking about. I just found out in the Oculus Quest 2 group today that you could be using a fast charging battery and it's not charging as fast as it should be because Oculus has got a different proprietary thing that has to be done. I don't know exactly what it is, but
Well, I did not know that.
yeah, I didn't either. I looked it up in several sources, and it was absolutely correct. So,
Oh, Radio Runt says 3080 for him. Yeah, Radio Runt finally got that 3080 and
oh, he's waiting on the
the
PSU cable.
I forgot to mention that you have to have three 8-pin cables to power this beast, and you've also better have a steel reinforced uh, PCIe slot on your motherboard too, or else it's gonna just rip it down when you try to hang it there.
Oh, I bet that's crazy. Yeah, power. The Anchor power delivery. Yeah, I don't know. So it's not necessarily just Anchor because I've got the Morphe, which is a really good brand as well. But I think it is the PD. It's power delivery. And that is PD. And so it's got to be just kind of like the blocks in the for your phone. Use that. I guess it has that PD in there, I believe, for the fast charging. But I got a special cord that actually will charge properly. So I'm kind of psyched to see if it makes a difference. People say
That might
it makes a big difference.
that might be the reason why I never noticed it, because the Anchor is the one that I have, the Anchor power line or something like that. Um,
Well,
it's the one that
you can have the power. The bat my bank has the power delivery as well, but if you don't have the right cable for it, it won't deliver the extra power.
Right,
So,
right. That's what I'm saying. The cable I bought is the Anchor power line that Oculus recommends on their Q&A.
hmm,
Like if you don't get their Oculus Link cable, this is the one that they recommend.
okay.
And I'll link to it directly from Oculus to Amazon
Well,
to
look
get it.
and see if it's got power delivery because even the Oculus Link cable that they sell doesn't have it. It
Oh,
would,
really? Well,
yeah.
okay.
As far as I know, I mean, maybe it does, but
Anyway, want to shout out quickly Delirium Drew. He's got a channel here right here on YouTube. He's a frequent uh, you know, viewer and someone who's always in the chat. But doing a giveaway tomorrow, Roots. He's going to be
ooh.
giving away, get this, Swarm. He's giving away
Oh
Swarm.
my God, dude. Well, you need to get out there and check it out and go to Drew's channel, sign up for it for sure, because that's one of the best games I've ever played in VR.
Yeah, so he's going to be streaming it tomorrow on his channel, and he's going to give away a copy or two of them. It's the first time he's ever given away anything on his channel, but he's growing quickly. So if you all haven't already, check out Delirium Drew VR on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe while you're over there.
Absolutely.
All right. With that said, friends, I think it's going to be a show. We'd like to thank you guys once again for watching. Stay tuned. Lots of stuff upcoming this week. Demio, The Wizard's Dark Times, Star Wars Pinball, Layers of Fear, and God knows what else is going to pop up tomorrow, Roots.
Yeah, I thought there was one more too, but who knows what else is coming, right?
Yeah. Anyway, with that said, friends, we'd like to thank you once again for watching. For Roots, I'm Wes. We'll see you Sunday. Bye bye.
Take it easy.